Well, I'm Gillian Maxwell, and I'm actually the owner and co-founder and owner and director of a retreat center called the Sentinel. And we have our places in the Kootenays in British Columbia, and we're right on Kootenay Lake, and we're on the lake shore actually, and across from the mountains, and it's amazingly beautiful, but also healing place to be in. And we picked it specifically for that purpose.
And on your website, you talk about your kind of your mission, or to summarize, you're about raising consciousness. And so what are the tools you are using to raise consciousness?
Well, I think when I look back on when we were doing sort of the branding for the Sentinel, it really isn't any different from what I've been doing really, as far as I recall, consciously, and my husband too, as far as being with people and uplifting and being in a relationship with people that leaves them better than before we had the conversation. And so that has sort of morphed into many different ways of working with people. I coach people quite a lot. I've had a lot of training background in coaching, and I've also been working personally with entheogens or psychedelics for probably 20 years now, and have really felt how it has affected me, impacted me, stirred me, helped me grow. And so didn't really think of offering that to other people until this sort of new resurgence of psychedelics as a therapeutic tool has come about really rapidly, probably in like the last 5 years, really quite dramatically. And I've always been involved in drug policy reform and harm reduction in that world for many, many years. And so this seemed like a nice way of sort of coming full circle back to that, including using our retreat center. And so we do many things here. It could be trainings for leadership or yoga, meditation, and we also do ceremonies for people to come and experience entheogens and psychedelics in a very safe container.
And, you know, Gillian, you and I were both in the Vancouver area, so our paths have crossed. And I was watching a Goop episode of Gwyneth Paltrow, and they were out in Jamaica.
You were.
In a retreat, and lo and behold, you were on the screen. So how did you what was happening there?
I sit on the board of MAPS Canada, which is the multidisciplinary association for psychedelic studies. It's been going in the United States for many, many years, and now we have a Canadian version, and I'm on the board. And Gwyneth Paltrow's Goop episode came about because they were looking to do one on psychedelics, and somehow or other they were introduced to the MAPS Canada people, and I just don't know why it wasn't MAPS in the US, but although it came from there. And I think they were looking for a woman, you know, as often is the case. And so they saw me on the board, and we had a Zoom interview, and I rambled on for hours, and I thought, oh my God, you know, because I'm really excited about all this stuff. And so, that's the end of that. Anyway, very long story short, I actually was suggesting they come here, but the legality of the using psilocybin, which is what they wanted to use, is not, it isn't good in Canada, and in Jamaica it is legal to use it. So they said Jamaica, and I said, you know, have a good time. They said, no, we want you to come with us. And so I took my team, Richard Kay, my husband, and another wonderful somatic healer practitioner called Sasha Cuff, and we all went down to Jamaica and worked with the crew that worked for Gwyneth, beautiful people. And so they had I thought it was really great. They had a range of issues that they were looking at, from just wanting to be more creative to healing with their healing childhood trauma around their father and not having a father and stepfather and some things in between. And so they, the production team filmed everything and made that episode, and I thought it showed what happens. And so what happens is you take, let's say it's psilocybin, it could be MDMA, could be, usually those two are the most common. You can also, there's also ayahuasca and iboga, but they're in a slightly different realm. But for, say, psilocybin, the whole point is to release trauma from the system, from the body. And it's been, over the years, I've been, looking at how can we help people the most, and really concluded that talk therapy is great, but it doesn't get down to that, those core things that are embedded in your system, in your body somewhere. And so for me, I'm excited about the possibility of psychedelics. So what happens is you take the substance and wait a little while and have an intention. The most important part of this entire process actually is the set and the setting, is to have a very safe container for people to just relax and let go and let the medicine, as we call it, do its work. And so if the intention is to resolve my relationship with my mother, then that's a very clear intention, that maybe just let go. And then often, not always, but generally there will be experiences that come to the surface that were difficult and uncomfortable, probably with the mother or with something else that sort of relates to that. And instead of re-traumatizing and reliving them, you're actually able to experience them from a bit of a distance and observe them. And then the opportunity is to be the adult Gillian, if it's me, the adult Gillian, being there for the child who went through whatever they went through. And that's a key piece. So the first piece is to set the setting, to be really safety, and that is setting intentions, being safe with the people that you're with, and knowing that whatever happens, you're held. And then letting go, and then being able to sort of resolve some things. And literally, people sometimes howl, they cry, they laugh, whatever. But there is a release from that, from our system, from our nervous system, that really doesn't come back. It's magical is a silly word to use, because that's not very scientific, and there are scientific ways to explain it, which I'm not the one to do that. But it is a magical experience to see people just let go of something that's been keeping them, post-traumatic stress, keeping them just, taut for their entire lives. And it really is beautiful.
And what is your institute, what are you doing here in the British Columbia then with psychedelics? Because it had a bad rap for a while. Like, psychedelics were being used and then it was like taken off the table. And now there's a resurgence with low dose psychedelics again for post-traumatic stress disorder and other mental health issues.
Well, I have actually two groups that I'm involved with around this. One is the Sentinel itself, where we do offer medicines. And secondly, I'm also on the board of BAPS Canada. I'm also on the board of a new organization called the Canadian Psychedelic Association, as CPA. And we're basically formed ourselves to kind of guide this journey of these medicines, we call medicines, psychedelics, into being in the sort of legal world, because it can go in many directions when there are people that don't actually understand them, or don't honor them and value them, and just maybe are trying to make money out of them, or trying to suppress them and control them. And neither of those things are actually aligned with plant medicines and what it's a spiritual experience. So neither of those things are on the spiritual realm. And so we formed this group. There's 8 of us. We're a national organization, but we started in Vancouver, and we're here to guide the process. So to legitimize what has been thought, illegal, which has been illegal, but thought not beneficial. And I mean, I have a long history of drug policy reform, so I understand that the drugs and the policies that make drugs currently illegal have nothing to do with the content of the drug or the impact, beneficial or not, that it has on a person. All the prohibition laws are all political and often racist, actually, by nature, and came into being for that reason. So some laws just shouldn't be there anymore. So we advocate for the laws to change. We advocate for the people that have been working underground for many years, helping people to be included in the transition. We advocate for people who have maybe doctors or naturopaths or TCMs who want to be involved in this work to do their own work with the medicines, so they understand what it's all about, and to kind of keep it as away from the pharmaceutical industry as much as possible. And so, those are some pretty sort of rocky roads that it could go down. And so our intention is for those not to happen and to really just guide it as well as we can. So that's why I'm starting it.
And you see this because part of your mission is, to make a change for good in the world. And so this is helping people trapped emotion, trauma. Allows it to get released.
Absolutely. Obviously, there's never one solution to anything. And I'd be the last person to say that. And I think these medicines are, if people are called to do them, then that's something that, then they're attracted to it and it's something for them. And it isn't for everyone. So, and I think holotropic breathing stands creation, such a gift to humanity, really. And I think of all the modalities that I'm aware of, that's the closest that comes to this. It's very similar. It isn't the same. It isn't quite as intense, and but it's very similar. And what I love is actually combining those two. So working with a person who is under the influence, and then having them do some breathing to open everything up. It's quite a intense, but really, really good therapeutic experience for them. So yes, there's many modalities, but breathing, best of all the ones that are not involving medicine.
Thank you for that. I've never experienced psychedelics, so I have questions. Yeah. What happens, I hear with, you go on trips. So when I do my breath work or certain things and I have an experience, I can very quickly get myself back into my body, right? What happens when you're on a psychedelic and these are low dose and people are having not such a good trip? What does that happen, first of all, with the work?
That happens, but it's how do you define good, really? So if you want to be comfortable, you're not going to have a good time because it can often be uncomfortable. But if you think of what you're doing, which is uprooting some deep and dark trauma in your system and getting rid of it, it's probably not going to be that, a day on the beach. And so we call them journeys. So, there's so much sort of old stigma, actually, and just kind of thoughts that people have coming from the 60s and 60s, really, which I think introduced people to this world, but really didn't do a very good way of telling the potential that they have. And so there was a lot of use in the 60s, and there was a lot of crazy use, and it wasn't in a safe container, which is the biggest thing of all. And so anybody that's having let's put it this way. I'm interested in people doing it in a safe container and in a therapeutic way. So there is always somebody there to sit with the person while they have the experience. And when they're feeling upset or afraid, often there's fear, it may just be that you hold their hand, or maybe actually hold them for a while, or hold their feet, or just tell them that it's okay, that they're safe, whatever is going on, because they just need the support to know they're not alone, which was maybe their experience, their traumatic experience was they were alone then, and there wasn't anyone to help. And so it's partly encouraging them to help themselves, but being there for them too.
I love the fact that you're talking about, but it's the environment and the intention in your safe container, because my way of relating to this is I've done multiple breath work where in the breath work I do, you have your own sitter, so there's one person per breather, and you go 3 hours. So it's a good journey. And I've experienced sadness and rage and and sometimes I have emotions without any thought to it, just comes through. And I wouldn't say, it's kind of like, I wouldn't say it's I love it, but I love it, because it is such a cleansing, releasing, letting go, cathartic experience that I'm willing to be uncomfortable. I know this will pass. And when I move through it, it's just a different, lighter experience. And so hence why I've done multiple breathworks. It's work and it can be uncomfortable, but it's not suffering. It's not suffering. Although somebody watching me may think I'm suffering, internally I wasn't suffering. And I look forward to that release. So that's my way. Am I relating it well with the psychedelics? Because that's been my experience with that.
Really, really well. I would say that I would use the same words, really well. That is how it is. Yeah. And if you think birthing something new, letting go and birthing something new, that's never an easy thing. You're bringing something into existence that wasn't there before. You're healing a wounded part of you. And so, yeah, it's not gonna hurt, but it's gonna take effort and intention.
And then, so what are your plans for the future? What are you working on?
Well, oh gosh. Okay. Well, we're talking about it. Actually, we're talking about it, and why it feels so important to me right now is that we are in a terrible crisis, even though we've been completely sort of co-opted by COVID. Not to say that isn't a crisis too, but there are other things going on the planet with human beings that are getting to crisis stage, like the climate, obviously. And people are generally asleep or don't want to hear it and unaware and and myopic. And so what I'm most wanting to do is actually wake people up. And I think I could, if I look back, I think that's what I've always been doing, is waking people up in different ways to, laws that really are not what they say they're about and are not fair and cause great harm. That just doesn't seem fair. And mostly people are not aware of them. So my job has been to tell people about them. And so now it's this, and it's actually to tell people that the laws need to change. We just had a petition actually with our Canadian Psychedelic Association of decriminalizing nature, all the plants that grow. It's kind of crazy when you think that we actually criminalize plants. And we got, I think, almost 15,000 signatures, and that's going to be read into Parliament. And so that becoming involved, becoming aware, becoming involved in those kinds of things is really important, like waking yourself up to what's really happening in the world around this, and actually having, even if you're not interested yourselves, but be open to other people doing this work for themselves, because I feel like the waking up part, when we're also sort of taking care of ourselves and our traumas, and don't really look at the world around us, and that it actually needs our love and attention. But we have to give it to ourselves first, and then when we do, we can look around and go, oh my God, look, I need to help with the oceans being cleaned up, or I need to help with some other environment. I need to help babies. I don't know, whatever it is, something bigger than you. And I think, for me, why I'm involved in this moment with psychedelics is it's the fastest way of getting there. And I don't think we've got tons of time.
Catalyst to wake us up. When you're talking about the planet and consciousness, again, I'll paraphrase. I'm not sure this is what he's saying. It's how I'm hearing. Dr. Bruce Lipton, you're probably familiar with his work. And he talks about the honeymoon effect. And his big thing is that the world is at that state where we're going to go extinct or wake up. And everybody's trying to go to work on the material, like work on the planet. But it sounds like he's talking more about a quantum physics or a consciousness. You need to go work on yourself. And when we transform and heal ourselves, the planet will heal because of that, because we'll act and behave differently because we are conscious.
I love Bruce's work, and I totally agree. And so when people are sort of, oh my God, what to do is to see what you can do for yourself, waking yourself up, letting go of trauma, and you're doing that not just for you. There is this other impact that has on the world around you. And there's, what else is there to do? I can't go and clean up an ocean by myself that's had an oil spill. I can do this, and I can facilitate this for other people, and I can also help it be available for other people to do. So that makes me happy.
A couple of questions around your personal beliefs then that adds to this. There are some schools of thought that there is this organizing consciousness. So when we do our certain meditations or in psychedelics, you're tapping to another area of your brain. Just curious, because you're working with psychedelics, is your belief that this is the individual and they're contained, or they are this part of this consciousness, and sometimes they're having these profound experiences because they're tapping into something that we don't quite understand or explain well with our common physics and biology?
Absolutely, that we're tapping into a bigger consciousness. Somebody said to me today, oh, it's not energy, it's awareness. Somebody just went into, we have a beautiful temple here, we call it Maloka, and she went in there and went, oh, no, it's not energy, it's awareness. And I feel there's this higher, bigger intelligence, if you like, that surrounds us all. And some people might call that God or other names. I don't think it really matters what our little tiny little human brains do with it. I just know that we tap into it because I have had that experience. And I do believe that we're spirits manifested in physical form for a period of time. And so the more that we awaken to that and remember that this isn't just all that there is, and there's way more that we simply can't see, and this allows us to connect to that, then that's what I believe, that there's something way bigger that we're honored and privileged to be able to just tap into from time to time, and being allowed to. Surely it's not a coincidence that these plants grow and that we're able to harvest them and find out what to do with them and ingest them and then connect with something way bigger than us. I just don't think that's a coincidence. So I just feel we're really blessed to have that opportunity.
What have you seen that you're like, regardless of the challenges, politics, etc., you're doing this work because you've experienced something that's been profound?
I think most of my experiences over the years have actually been with ayahuasca. And ayahuasca is a great teacher. And my experiences have been around love, self-love, and generosity, and patience. So, and it's a female energy, and she's been teaching me that. So I have an example which is kind of funny, but it's true. So for many ceremonies, I would have the intention, what keeps me from standing in my power? And I'd have, an experience of something, and I'd go, oh, I don't know. It's just one of those, ceremonies. I don't really know what that was all about. So then, next time or a few times, I'd say the same thing. So this happened about 4 or 5 times. And then finally, the message got through that what stops me from standing in my power is my judgments. And so she would show me something, and I judge it in the ceremony, and then just think, well, that wasn't a very good ceremony. And I finally realized that actually the teaching was, and she taught me this way and that way, and I finally got it, that it was all about my own judgments about myself and others, and that's what stops me from being powerful. And that just, apart from the teaching itself, I was so moved by this plant actually teaching me in ways that I could learn. And obviously I wasn't getting it this way, and finally just was patient. And I know that sounds crazy to make a plant sound like a human, and it's not. But there's an aspect of relationship that happens with particularly ayahuasca, and certainly the psilocybin, that is just changes everything. It just makes life look different because it's not just me and you, there's this other world, and it just opens everything up. It opened me up completely.
I'm doing consciousness work. I teach, and I have a workshop coming up in September. It's all about undoing old programs and putting up new programs, right? So getting into that operating system, right? In a nice, healthy way, right? Opening up, letting go of the vibration. So using tools. I kind of describe as, Eckhart Tolle, the power of now. You're in the present moment. You can transform suffering. but I didn't know, how do you now, right? Like, what do you do? How do you get in the now? I get be in the now, but how do you get in the now? And so I have found tools that I use, gimmicks and tools to help you present moment, right? I use it in my practice now, and I do a workshop and I teach it. So to find out more about psychedelics and the waking up to a different form of consciousness, or to be part of that new paradigm, check out Gillian's website, and it's gillianmaxwell.com. So you can check out Gillian's website. She's got lots of information there. She does her own coaching as well. Gillian, thanks a lot for connecting with me today.
Lots of love.